Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Walker, Senior Vice President of Public Policy for the Overland Park Chamber. With me today is Andrew Vanderlaan, a candidate for Blue Valley Board of Education. Today we're going to spend some time getting to know Andrew and learn about his candidacy and his priorities if elected to the school board. Andrew, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
Let's start by having you take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for the Blue Valley School Board.
Absolutely. Again, my name's Andrew Vanderlaan. I'm running for seat number 4 in the Northeast. I'm a Kansan by choice. My wife and I moved our family here because of the excellent public schools. I have 3 kids in the Blue Valley schools, 1 in elementary, 1 in middle school, 1 in high school, and I'm excited to help make these schools as excellent tomorrow as they are today.
Wonderful. Well, let's turn our attention to a few questions, and I'll start. As a candidate, what are your top education policy priorities?
Sure. The top 3 I would identify first is COVID recovery. Recovering from the very difficult year that students and teachers had last year. We're in the middle of the assessment process now to understand how far behind kids might be so that we can take the rest of the year to catch them up. I think that's the first most crucial priority. The second thing I would say is it's mental health awareness. People may not think of that as an education policy issue, but I think it's table stakes. If kids aren't feeling right, they're not going to be able to come in and learn. And the increasing pressures that they face, whether it's academic or challenges at home or learning difficulties, we need to make sure that, or just social pressure, that we need to make sure that we're addressing those mental health challenges. The third, and I think this has been a big one, is really making sure that we are attracting and retaining the best possible teachers. Because any business owner knows we can have beautiful facilities, but the most important asset that we have are our teachers. And without them, we're not going to be able to drive world-class education.
Let's turn our attention to funding for a little bit. The Supreme Court ruled the K-12 education funding formula is both equitable and adequate. However, the court retained jurisdiction over the case to assure funding is maintained. What are your thoughts on the formula and the additional funding that's been added recently?
I am pleased to see that the legislature has adequately funded schools. I think that's wonderful. I think it's crucially important for our community here in Blue Valley and in the larger Johnson County area. I also appreciate that the local option budget continues to be an important lever for the school board to influence local policy and local outcomes here. And I would like to see that level of funding continue. I think everyone wants these kids to get the best possible education they can, and I hope that we can find some unity of purpose on that.
And the K-12 education system certainly requires accountability measures for student performance, but sometimes that's been a source of debate. Can you describe the accountability measures you support and you believe are accurately reflective of student achievement?
One of my old bosses used to like to say, you can't manage what you can't measure. And I think that's as true in education as it is in corporate America. But I don't think we can get tied to one metric. I think with 22,000 students across the district who are all looking at different kinds of outcomes and different kinds of achievement, we have to look at a basket of metrics. And so I think it's crucially important that we look at MAP scores and GPAs and that we break that out by both assessments and homework to understand where kids might have challenges, and that we continue to look at SAT or ACT scores or the new Acadience reading screeners. All of these things comprise a robust basket of metrics that we can look at to really understand how kids are achieving and learning.
And it's no surprise Kansas is experiencing low unemployment rates and employers are struggling to find qualified workers, especially in the technical and skilled trades. How do you see the school district helping the business community meet their workforce needs?
Sure. The mission of the Blue Valley Schools says very clearly that it's to help all of those kids, all the kids in the district, achieve their full potential. And we have to remember that that is true for kids who are attending competitive four-year colleges, kids who want to go to JUCO, kids who want to do something more vocational, technical, and the district has to be able to provide resources and opportunities for all of those kids. I think it's really important that we don't just focus on kind of the big headlines of National Merit Scholar and Ivy League scholarship, because there are kids who are not interested in that, who are not looking for that outcome, and we need to make sure that we have the kinds of programs that support them. One of the things I'd point to is the exciting new Fire Sciences program going on down at Blue Valley Southwest in a partnership with the Overland Park Fire Department. I think it's a great example of the creative thinking that the board and the district and the community can do together to find outcomes for kids that are pursuing other paths.
And outside of funding, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing the school district right now?
I think one of the district's greatest challenges, honestly, is self-imposed, and I think it's communication. I think we've seen that in the COVID pandemic. We saw it before the pandemic. For those of you who are familiar with the middle school elective change, the district often doesn't communicate as well proactively as they do reactively. And I would like to see the district be more clear about why they're making the changes they're making, why they think those will benefit the community, and be more transparent about why those changes happen and how they fit into the longer-term strategic plan.
And my last question for you is, what makes you uniquely qualified to serve on the board and most distinguishes you from your opponent in the race?
Sure. Two things I'd point to. The first is my corporate experience, my business experience. I've spent over 20 years as a finance and operations professional, working on Wall Street, then working for Random House. And I've really learned how to lead large, diverse, complicated organizations with groups of stakeholders that might be pointed in lots of different directions and need to find common purpose. The second I would point to is my community involvement. I've been a scoutmaster. I serve on the board of the Coterie Theater in Crown Center. I'm the president of that board this year and next year. And I've also been very involved with American Legion Boys State for almost 3 decades. And I found that all of those opportunities really point toward creating opportunities for kids. And ultimately, I think that's who you want on the school board, someone who shows up for kids.
Well, Andrew, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. And before we close, I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to provide any final thoughts if you'd like.
Absolutely. I think what I want to point to is the fact that this race really matters. I think we haven't had to worry about school board. Lots of school board candidates have run unopposed. People have expected the school board to just kind of run and do what it does without having to worry about it. But this race historically only has 7 to 10% turnout. So if there is one thing I would ask you to do today, whether you plan to show up for me or my opponent, please know that it is crucially important that you vote. And it's crucially important that you harass your friends, your neighbors, your professional colleagues to get them out and vote as well.
Good. Well, let me give everyone a reminder that advance voting by mail begins on Wednesday, October 13th. Advance voting in person begins on Saturday, October 23rd. And of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 2nd.